G'day there, wherever you happen to be joining us, whether it be on our online or in-person gathering. We're so excited to have you with us today as we continue our 3-week series on relationship with our great friend, Pastor Shane Willard. Today we're going to be hearing about family and parenting relationships. So, on behalf of the Dwyer family, we want to say a great big welcome to Generosity Church.
You know, in Jeremiah chapter 29, we read, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you, not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. Then you will call on me and come and pray to me, and I will listen to you. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart." So today, guys, when we worship God, let's seek Him with all our heart, and we will find Him. And we can seek Him for our families, whether you have little ones like us, or whether your little ones are all grown up now. But we can seek God on behalf of our families. We can seek God on behalf of our community, because He has promised when we seek Him with all our heart, we will find Him.
Hi church, hope you're doing well, and I just want to encourage you to keep praying for each other, and let's really be thinking during this season of ways that we can bless and encourage our communities, in the name of Jesus Christ. Hey, we just wanted to give you a bit of an update of some things that are happening in the life of our church. First thing is some great news that is happening in our Bathurst campus. Some of you might remember Gary and Robin Blackford, who were pastors at Coffs Harbour for some time, and then moved to Gladstone to help out with our friends at Lifestyle Church. And they're moving to Bathurst, and they're going to lead pastor the church there. And it's such exciting news for the life of our church. Gary and Robin bringing a unique ministry flavour, and I'm sure there'll be a blessing there. Renee and Caleb, who planted the church there, are still going to continue to live in Bathurst. One of the great benefits with that change is that Pastor Caleb's going to move full-time into the role of executive pastor across the life of our church, and so that's an exciting thing. We want to celebrate and thank Gary and Robin for being a part of that journey. Really looking forward to them being a huge blessing into the life of our church.
In a couple of our other campuses, we've got some more exciting news for you. Pastor Pete and JC Richards in our Narromine campus are stepping in as our lead pastors there. They've been associates with Zach and Hannah there for the last little while, and they're stepping into the role as lead pastors at our Narromine campus. So we're really excited for that and to see what God has for the next season for our Narromine church. Also within Cobar, Steve and Michelle Gillette are stepping up as our lead pastors there, following the call of God that He's put upon their lives. They have a real heart for the community and a love for the town of Cobar. So that's super exciting for both of those communities to have local lead pastors on the ground within their location.
And lastly, church, let's make sure we're engaged with life in the Word. It's just a great opportunity for all of us, our church family, individually, our own families, our own communities, to really engage in the living Word of God. And life in the Word, we're in the book of Ephesians now, where we just read a chapter a week, and you might read that chapter across several times, but it's just a great opportunity where we can talk about the Bible, where we can talk about what is writing. There's some tools and an overview that can help us understand the book of Ephesians greater. We've already done Galatians, we're now moving through the book of Ephesians. So would you just be encouraged and engaged within that journey? It's a great opportunity for all of us to really hear from God through His written Word, in order for us to really take on the life of Christ and be transformed by His Word. So be incredibly blessed. We pray God's best and God's greatest blessings over you and your family. And really, let's just keep holding up one another in prayer as we believe for God to continue to move in our nation. God bless you.
Hello. We are so glad that we can be your worship team today. Join with us. Our praise awaits you with the dawn. Our souls awake to you and lift a song. We've seen the things that you have done, and still we know the best more to come. Open the gates and let your glory come down. Open our hearts and let our worship pour out. Your presence here is all we need. You break our chains with sounds of victory. You're changing everything. Open the gates and let your glory come down. Open our hearts and let our worship pour out. Open the gates and let your glory come down. Open our hearts and let our worship pour out. Come flood this space. No one else could take your place. Come have your way. No one else could take your place. Come flood this space. No one else could take your place. Come have your way. No one else can take your place. Open the gates and let your glory come down. Open our hearts and let our worship pour out. Open the gates and let your glory come down. Open our hearts and let our worship pour out. Pour it out. In Psalm 122, verse 1, 2, and 3, it says, I was glad when they said to me, let us go to the house of the Lord. And doesn't that land a little bit differently now in this season of lockdown? But it says in verse 2, but here we are, standing inside your gates, O Jerusalem. And wherever and whenever you're joining us today, we are standing inside the gates of Jerusalem. Verse 3, it says, Jerusalem is a well-built city. Its seamless walls cannot be breached. All the tribes of Israel, the Lord's people, make their pilgrimage here. And maybe today you haven't got into the car to go anywhere. You've pilgrimaged from the bedroom to the living room. But here you are, standing in the gates of Jerusalem, the city built for praise. It says that the walls of Jerusalem are seamless and cannot be breached. That's not about lockdown. That's about being together so tight that you can't see the gaps, that you can't see the distance, that you can't see where the joins are, because heaven and earth have met so well together that the walls are seamless. So today, wherever you are, put your hands together like this. Press them tight. Make them seamless. And then open the gates and pour it out. Pour out your worship. Pour out your praise. Pour out your honour. Give him glory inside your Jerusalem, wherever it is today. Pour it out. Pour it out. Pour it out. Pour it Pour it out, pour it out, pour it out. Earth is open. Pour it out, pour it out, pour it out. Pour it out, pour it out, pour it out. Pour it out, pour it out, pour it out. Pour it out, pour it out, pour it out. Open the gates and let your glory come down. Open our hearts, we let our worship pour out. Open the gates and let your glory come down. Open our hearts and let our worship pour out. In the crushing, in the pressing, you are making new wine. In the soil I now surrender, you are breaking new ground. So I yield to you and to your careful hands. When I trust you, I don't need to understand. Make me a vessel. Make me an offering. Make me whatever you want me to be. I came here with nothing but all you have given me. Jesus, bring new wine out of me. In the crushing, in the pressing, you are making new wine. In the soil I prayer is, make me a vessel, make me an offering, make me whatever you want me to be. God, I came here with nothing but all you have given me. Jesus, bring you wine out of me. Jesus, bring you wine out of me. Jesus, bring you wine out of me. And you're never gonna let me down. You're never gonna let me down. You're never gonna let me down. You're never gonna let me. Oh no, you're never gonna let me down. You're never gonna let me down. You're never gonna let me down. Oh no, you're never gonna let me down. 'Cause you are good, good. Oh, 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 you are good. You are good. You are good, good. Oh, you are good, good. Oh, you are good, good. Oh, you are good, good. The band is going to play, and in this moment, close your eyes and start to declare His goodness in your family, His goodness in your workplace, His goodness in your school, His goodness in your street, His goodness in your town, His goodness in your nation. He is good, He does good. He is good and He does good. We sing of your faithfulness, God. Oh, we sing of your goodness to us. We sing of your mercy, sing of your kindness, sing of your peace. We sing of you, we sing of you, we sing of you. And we say you are good, good. Oh, you are good, good. Oh, you are good, good. Oh, one more time, you are good, good. Oh, the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry. These bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. All the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry. These bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. All the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry. These bones will sing. Great are you. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise. We pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour it out. We pour it out. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. Great are you, Lord.
Well, thanks again, Shane, for joining us today. This is our series that we're doing around relationships. I want to thank you again for joining us. And today, for those who may be jumping in for the first time, we're going to just have a bit of a talk around some aspects around parenting. So there's myself and Libby. We have 4 kids, 16 through to 11. We've also got Luke and Tash as well. Their kids are, if I remember rightly, 8 through to 2. So we've got a bit of a broad spectrum of inexperience and ages between us. So we've got loads of inexperience, loads of out of our depth parenting. And so we just thought today, as part of our relationship series, it'd be great to, I guess, ask Shane some questions, maybe give some thoughts around, for all of us, that can help us parent better, as we move forward. So Shane, thanks for joining us. And again, Shane's been a huge friend of ours personally in our churches. And so thanks for being a part of this series, Shane.
Pleasure, mate. Pleasure, mate. It's so good to be with you guys always.
All right, so let's just kick off straight away, Shane. What would be a couple of, maybe 1 or 2, maybe 3 things that you think, as we want to parent in a healthy way, in a better way, and really bring up, I guess, mature thinking children that become mature thinking adults. What give us some thoughts, I guess, right off the bat around what that could look like.
Well, first, so let's good. So let's paint a big picture of the biggest, most broadest way to say it, and then let's drill down to more specifics. So, in the biggest way to say it, I think our role as parents is to develop mature adults who act in wisdom. Now, what that means is that we have to see kids gently through at least 3 processes of development, which is egocentricity, ethnocentricity, and then obviously ultimately world centricity. So I'll give you an example. So Tash has a 2-year-old. Now I'd bet my house that 2-year-old is egocentric, right? So in other words, egocentric is the 2-year-old believes she's the center of the world, and the 2-year-old acting normally will behave in such a way to keep themselves the center of the world, whether that be by negative reinforcement or positive reinforcement. It's just, and it doesn't mean they're a bad kid. It just means that's what is normal. kids who are egocentric are trying to keep their world revolving around them. And you see this magnified if there's something tragic like a divorce. So parents go through a divorce or something and they go, oh, my 11-year-old's acting out. You reckon? The 11-year-old used to have an easier job staying the center of the world when everybody was in the same place, but now there are two places. And so we have to act in such a way to get two revolving objects to revolve around the same location again. That requires acting out. And so ultimately in parenting, what we're trying to do is gently nurture our kids from an egocentric point of view to an ethnocentric point of view. At some point, if I'm going by my memory, but the oldest for Tash and Luke is 8. 8 years old is an appropriate age to start developing ethnocentricity. And I think we do that naturally, where we explain to them, hey, look, you're a part of the family. And as a part of the family, you got to pull your own weight, and you got to contribute. You've got to do things like pick up your room. Maybe there's some dishes that need to be done, and we can teach you how to do that. And so, but all those things are specific things. But what they're communicating is that you don't live on this isolated island. You are a part of a family system by which your actions or inactions cause certain ramifications. And so when we journey from egocentricity, which is the whole world revolves around me, and think about the words the 2-year-olds learn first: mommy, daddy, no, and mine. Like, who am I? I'm Shane. You're mommy, you're daddy. That's pretty basic. Shane, mommy, daddy. How do I get mommy and daddy to revolve around me? 2 words: mine and no. Right? So it's a for 2 years old, it is a clever strategy of creating that. But at some point, good parenting moves people to ethnocentricity. And then obviously by the early teenage years, the early teenagers should be aware of our role as a family in the world. What are we doing for our world? How are we making our world a better place? And so the question is how do we do that? And I have a few thoughts, and then because this is a collaborative discussion, and you're the ones with all the children. As a matter of fact, you guys, if somebody asks me why I don't have kids, I could say because you had my share. That the 8 between the two of you, like you've I don't need to. You guys. You guys have substituted for me. But I would say first, to never allow, there's got to be room for a kid to have a bad moment or bad day or some sort of stress and outburst without an overreaction. But we should never allow our kid to develop a habit of behavior that makes us not like them. Right? Here's the reason why. Your DNA wired to like them. So if they develop a behavior that makes you not like them, other people are going to hate them. And that's a problem. So I'll give you an example. If somebody hollers and yells to get their way once, and we gently sort of correct that, and that's one thing. But if that creates a habit, and the way a habit is created is reinforcement. So someone doesn't get their way, they yell, and then you give them what they want. They don't get their way, they yell and scream and throw a tantrum, they get what they want. If that then becomes a habit through reinforcement, that's one thing at 7. At 35, that is a miserable husband, a miserable wife, miserable coworkers, a failed business. That behavior doesn't work in our world. And so I would say first, we have to make sure that we're not allowing a habit to form in our children that make us not like them. I think it's a great way to say it. If the behavior makes you not like them, and I'm not talking about not loving them, we always would love our kids. I'm talking about not like them. And your parents, you know the difference. It's something that we have to deal with. That's first. Second, and so what I'll do is I'll just set the framework for the discussion, and we can go back 1, 2, 3 and talk through it. Second, I think we need to wrestle with the gap between the word training and the word punishment. So the wisdom literature says, train up a child in the way they should go, and in the end, they will not depart from it. In other words, when you train good habits into your children, those habits tend to be permanent in their life, right? Train up a child in the way they should go, and in the end, they won't depart from it. We sort of replace that with punish them when they do wrong and hope it works out in the end. And I just don't see that as reasonable. And I think we need to discuss the gap between the word training and the word punishment. I think there's two different things. And three, there's this great wisdom in the Bible that says, fathers, do not provoke or exacerbate your children to wrath. And so we have to ask the question, am I behaving in such a way that moves my children to out of control anger? And we could talk about some ways that we do that, and some ways that we can prevent that. And so to me, that's a good starting point framework for our discussion. The journey from ego, ethno, world, and are we allowing habits to be formed that make us not like our children? Have we navigated the gap between training and punishment? And are we exacerbating or provoking our children to wrath?
Right. Great.
Where do you go to from there? I don't know. But I suppose I'll ask a question around that habit forming part of parenting. What does the role of consistency play in that?
I think it's a great question. So two things must be in place for trust to go up and anxiety to go down. Okay, and that's consistency and predictability. Those two things. If you want to rob somebody of their sense of self, be intentionally inconsistent and unpredictable. It's actually a Vietnamese sort of Southeast Asian prison control technique. When they have too many prisoners for not enough guards, what they found is that if they're consistently and predictably cruel, the inmates will unite and come against them. If they're intentionally and predictably nice, they'll unite and come against them. So the way you control a prison population is you be consistently inconsistent and unpredictable. So what they do is they have nice days, cruel days, and they not even the guards know until they show up. So it might go like this: nice, nice, cruel, 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 nice, nice, cruel, nice, nice, cruel, cruel, nice, nice, cruel, cruel, cruel. It's random. And so when you do that, what the research shows is the other person's sense of self starts to go away. And so being consistent and predictable and keeping your word as a parent is of utmost importance according to the research. And actually, if you think about that, it's not just true in parenting, it's true in marriage. When needs are met consistently and predictably, trust goes up, anxiety goes down, and confidence increases. It's when it's inconsistent or unpredictable and you don't know what you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis that it starts to rob somebody of their sense of self. That's why certain access to personality disorders are caused by the inconsistent, unpredictable voice of particularly the mother. So some have to do with the mother, some have to do with the father. But like if the inner voice of your mother is never positive or is inconsistently yelling nice, pet the dog, kick the dog, what happens is it develops a habit in your brain to cope in order to survive. And all this happens before the age of 8, that then creates something called a personality disorder. So it's very important to be consistent and predictable. And I would say also that we need to measure whether the statements we're making and the questions we're asking reveal the same value, right? So what the research shows is when the questions we ask and the statements we make say the same thing, trust goes up, anxiety goes down, corporate confidence increases, right? So I'll give you an example. Let's say your 4th grader is a type A personality and stresses if they get less than 100, right? And so they're in there studying for some exam that they have, and you see them studying, you see them struggling, you see them stressing, and in love and compassion, you go in there and comfort him or her, and you say, "Hey, buddy," or "Hey, sweetie, all I want you to do is do your best." Well, that's a statement, right? So you made the statement, I want you to do your best. So the next day when you pick them up from school, they get in your car. Now what matters is the question you ask, right? So if they get in your car and your question is, hey, how'd the test go? Did you do your best? Right? Well, then you said, I want you to do your best. And then your question revealed a value that all I want you to do is do your best. And what the research shows is that the kids' trust in you and your word will go up, and their anxiety will decrease, and their confidence will increase, right? But if he gets in the car and you say, how'd it go? What grade did you make? Then the stated value and the questioned value actually are revealing two different values. And at that point, anxiety goes up because they don't know what to believe. And so being consistent and predictable with need meeting, with values, with rules, even if you regret some of the rules, to see it through till an appropriate time to change it. I don't think there's a parent alive that hasn't regretted saying no TV for a week, right? And you get 2 days into that no TV for a week and you realize you just punished yourself, right? You're like, oh, this is a bigger punishment on me than them. My Lord, what was I thinking? But allowing people to know that they can trust your positive and they can trust the consequence. They can trust you to be consistent and predictable, whether that be a negative reinforcement or a positive reinforcement. That trust goes up, anxiety goes down, and confidence increases.
Brilliant.
Can I ask probably a left field question, Shane? Do you see it as a powerful thing for parents to, when it's appropriate, apologize to their kids?
Yes, and I think we can go to the third statement I made there about not provoking your children to wrath. I think what's inappropriate is anytime adults put adult emotions onto children. They can't handle it, nor should they be able to. If mommy and daddy are stressed about money, the kid should have almost no idea about that. The kid shouldn't be laying in bed going, I wonder how much of this is my fault that we don't have money, right? We should not put adult emotions or conflict onto kids. So if parents are having a fight and then they pitch their version of the fight to the kid, and underneath that is this subtle intimation of you need to pick mommy's side here, or kids don't have that. They don't have that mechanism in them. And so obviously kids don't have the mechanism to handle adult emotions, adult stresses, and most of all, adult violence, right? But my dad did something that at 44, I look back on, and I think it was quite smart. My father did two things when it came to me that really worked. The first thing he did was he removed most prohibitions because he found that the power of temptation is in the mystery of the prohibition, right? So I'll give you an example. When I was a teenager, he asked me, Shane, you'll not be in trouble for anything you say, nor will I tell, but are your friends on occasion sneaking off having a drink? And I said, yes, some of them do. And he said, are you curious about drinking? And I said, a little bit. Like, what's the deal with it, you know? And he said, I tell you what, here's the rule. Anytime you want to drink, you won't be in trouble. You just have to drink with me. And so he removed the prohibition, which removed the mystery of it. And it did lose its power. I never drank. And he did that with a lot of different areas. That was one. But two, and to the point here about not exacerbating your children to wrath, he did this thing since I was like, as far as I could remember. So maybe before I could remember, where once a month he would take me on a date. We would have a date. And Once I turned probably 11 or 12, I asked him, could we call it a man's night instead of a date? But nonetheless, the function was, this is a date. And the rule was, on that night, I could say anything I wanted to him without being in trouble, so long as I said it respectfully in a low voice. So it gave me the opportunity to go, 2 weeks ago, you punished me for this, and you were wrong about that. Actually, the facts were this. Or 3 weeks ago, you didn't let me go with my friend somewhere, and I hated that. I hated that you didn't let me go with my friend somewhere, right? And the number of times my dad went, you know what? 2 weeks later, looking at that, I was wrong. I shouldn't have punished you. You know what? You're right. You're right. Would you forgive me for that? Well, yeah, Dad, I forgive you. Other times he would say, thank you so much for sharing that you're hurt and your anger about the situation. And I acknowledge it. I'm just going to ask you to trust me that one day when you're an adult, you'll look back and you'll get why I did that. But I acknowledge that it made you angry, and I'm sorry you got angry, but there was a big reason why. And whether you understand it or not, I can't help with that right now, but would you trust me? And so what that did is I always had a day. Now, if I reacted and said, I'm ticked off about this, if I reacted not on that day, but because I always knew there was a consistent and predictable day that I could say, it taught me a couple of invaluable lessons as an adult. And that is, it's okay to hold your hurt until there's an appropriate time to express it. There's also an appropriate way to express it. There's an appropriate time, an appropriate method, an appropriate way. And when you do that, that gets rewarded. Now, I've talked to my dad as an adult and said, why did you do that? And he said, I never wanted to give your anger more than 30 days to get big. So once a month, he sat down with me, and the rule was, anything you say, so long as you say it respectfully, you will not be in trouble. And I got to be fair to my dad. He kept his word on that. And I asked him as an adult, I said, was there any moment in those times where you just wanted to reach across the table and slap me or choke me? Like what? How could you possibly see the world that way? And he goes, oh yeah, you're a kid. He said, but I kept my word, and I wanted you to have a safe spot to share your hurt and your anger so that it didn't grow and grow and grow. And so to anybody listening to this, I can't urge you enough to create a space once a month by which you allow your children to share whatever they want to share, so long as they share it respectfully, and they will not be in trouble. And that will teach them to share things respectfully. It'll also teach them self-control and not to fly off the handle in a moment. It'll teach them impulse control. And it also, I can say that, did I ever get mad at my dad? Yes, I did. Did Dad ever misunderstand me? Yes, he did. But because there was an outlet to talk it through with no fear of shaming or punishment, and if you're going to make that deal, keep your word. If they say it respectfully, don't punish them, or they'll hide it. They'll keep it inside. And that was a massive, massive thing to hear my dad on occasion say, thanks for sharing that. You know what? I'm sorry. But the I'm sorry allowed him also to say, I'm going to need you to trust me on that one. Trust. I need you to trust that I love you and have your best interest at heart. And so those things mixed together created a really good thing.
So good.
Shane, I'd love to ask a question around the training and discipline thing. I think, when you are married, you both bring your experiences into the marriage. You become one, and then you start to have kids and you parent. And you've got to, I guess, find a way to parent together. How would you encourage people, I guess with the plethora of information that's available, how would you encourage parents to really biblically define the training and the discipline?
So what we don't want to do is misjudge the gap between the word training and punishment. We want discipline, but words matter less than how we picture words functioning. So if somebody reads that scripture, train up a child in the way they should go, and in the end they won't depart from it. And like one way I've heard it interpreted as, if you teach them to say yes to Jesus when they're kids, they won't leave the faith. Okay. And yes, one application, but I think it also applies to, how do you handle conflict? How do you see your purity? How do you handle money? How do you handle budgeting? I mean, I've run into 24-year-olds in my life that didn't know how to open a bank account. Well, where's the training? Like, you don't know how to balance a checkbook? You're 28, right? Where's the training in that? And so what happens is, and I want to be clear, I'm all for people staying in the faith, and I think that's part of it, but it's not the only part. And so, Ben and I are basketball coaches, right? And you would never go into a game without tons of preparation. If even at a high school level or at a junior level, you would have hours of running that play or setting that defensive set, or where do you go in this situation, before you play a game at a junior level on Saturday. Well, life is much more serious than a junior basketball game. And I think we put more practice and training into our recreational basketball leagues than some people do with their children's lives. And so, what we do is the scriptures say, train up a child in the way they should go. In other words, be intentional about developing habits that make for great adults in their childhood. And in the end, when they're adults, they won't depart from those habits you created in them. And so, but we replace that with, if you mess up, I'm going to punish you. Sometimes I'll restrict you. Sometimes I'll take your phone. In some awful cases, I'll hit you or something. And none of that really is the point. I think if we, without emotions and without the stress of the moment, we should have moments as parents where we teach our children how to balance a checkbook, how to cook a meal. And you might think, well, they can't cook. I'm watching a show right now called Junior Master Chef, and I'm talking about these flipping 10-year-olds can do more than you think. Like, every parent in Australia should be watching that going, why am I cooking so much? Look what them kids could do. But there's not a kid on that show that hasn't been trained. They weren't punished when they didn't do it. Hey, this is how you do this. This is how you set out your thing. So why not train them with basic life skills like cooking, cleaning, washing a car, balancing a checkbook, keeping track. And there's so many resources now. Dave Ramsey has so many resources now on how to teach kids how to keep track of their money in a healthy way. And so if we, I know a few parents who do this, and their kids are unbelievable, where they have training nights, where they train them on how to respond when they don't get their way. So they'll have them ask, Dad, can I have an ice cream? The dad will say, no. And the kid will say, thank you, Daddy. That's it. And there was never any ice cream on the table. It was a training exercise on, here's how you respond when you don't get your way. And in my experience, parents who train have kids that are just a joy to be around. And parents who punish only have kids that, a lot of us would rather not be around. And so every parent would have to sit down and devise a strategy based on age-appropriate behaviors to train. And here are some important areas: finance, cooking, hygiene. You don't want your kid going to junior high being the one kid with body odor, right? Like, don't put him behind that 8 ball, right? Like, teeth brushing, but then we also need to train in how to respond when we get a no, how to respond when we get a yes, how to lose well, how to win well, because all those things are necessary. And you can do those things in 10-minute little things. Hey, we're going to train. We're going to talk about how does our family respond in these situations, and you train them in it before the situation, so that when the situation arises, it comes up natural. They're not having to think through it. They're not being visceral. Their training kicks in, just like basketball, football, soccer, piano, saxophone, guitar, golf. Nobody acts wholesome in the heat of the moment. Their training kicks in. So like I preached a sermon at GC conference last year on the end of hostility. And I told a story about the history expert who thought I was taking him on, even though I was amazed. I was like, wow. I didn't go, wow. I went, really? Really? And he thought I wanted to fight. And here's a guy that knew more about anything than I know. And his response was, oh, Shane, peace between us is the most important thing. If one of us needs to be wrong, let it be me. Well, I would suggest that he didn't do that in the heat of the moment naturally, but that was years of training his own soul on how to respond in conflict. And we have that kind of power as parents to train them without punishing them every time they fail, because the training develops the discipline you're looking for to make a reasonable adult.
So good.
Cool, thanks.
So you mentioned before about taking a 2-year-old from egocentric to then becoming ethnocentric or family-centric, and then eventually transitioning into world-centric. So
Yes.
You mentioned around 8 could be good for the ethnocentric sort of training. When do you sort of look at, and how do you sort of look at stepping into that world-centric?
I think early preteens, because of the internet, they're sort of becoming aware of it anyway. An 11-year-old is sort of aware of injustice, even if it doesn't have to do with them, right? So they see something on the internet and they go, that's not fair, that's not right. And so we have all these opportunities to say, well, you're right about that. That is unjust. I wonder if there's anything we should be doing about that. This is why, you guys are pastors. What age do youth groups take their first missions trip or something? It's about that junior high where, and I think about it now, a busload of 13-year-olds going to Mexico. I don't know. But anyway, but what happens is these teenagers come back from the mission trip and here's what happens. They're more grateful for what they have for about 2 months, because they've been aware that people are happy and have less, and they're aware of how much we actually, and so you're doing these things to develop world-centric sort of ideas, like where are my actions or inactions? Of course, GC does a great job keeping the Horizon Project in front of people and saying, hey, look, we are actively and intentionally trying to make people's lives better who can do nothing in return for us. And so these are things that we learn to do, and it's actually the earlier we do them, and I think if we just pay attention to the words and observations of our 11-year-olds, 10-year-olds, we'll know when it's time. It's when they start using words like, man, their life isn't as good as ours. Like when they start noticing that, that's a good day. That's a really good day. And then that's an opportunity to once again train.
Beautiful.
Are you going to go?
No.
I guess my question is around what would you say to parents who are going through seasons where their kids are pushing the boundaries, potentially engaging in some harmful behaviours? How would you encourage parents to navigate that without dictating or wielding control? How would you encourage them?
Yeah, so because there's a couple of convergent circles there that doesn't allow an either or answer. The truth of it is that it depends on their age and the nature of the behavior. Quite frankly, some things we should just let go and let them experience the consequences of that so that they learn. Other things, if you let them experience the consequences of it, it could kill them. So like walking down the road blindfolded is a game, probably not a good idea, probably should stop that. So there are there are things that we have to gauge, like what are the natural consequences of what I'm seeing my child engage in? How is this affecting the whole family? Because you can't let the actions of one dictate the lack of shalom for the whole. It's part of being ethnocentric, right? And so part of training is, hey, your actions are now causing havoc over here, and this can't be. And so, and sometimes you just have to lower the boom on them. Like it's oftentimes the best to go hard, go fast, go early. To quote Jacinda and her virus strategy, it's true with parenting. At some point, a kid is going to push the boundaries. And let me tell you why that's good. They're trying to figure out where their limits are and where their freedom starts and stops. And if they're not doing that, I'd be worried. I'd be wondering if they're a sociopath, right? Like, because someone who's not concerned at all with where their liberty stops and starts and where their person stops and starts and where their boundaries are, that's problematic. But the only way to sort of figure that out is to push and see when you get resistance, right? And so if they're pushing, seeing if they get resistance, then that's a good thing and that's normal. But at some point, you have to sort of set the boundary hard. Like I'll give you an example. I was sitting in my room one time, I was probably 12, and my door was shut and I was watching television. And my dad just flung the door open and said, "What are you doing in here?" Right? And it sort of startled me. And I said, now this was not the night that was set aside for me to express myself. And I said, "What's the matter with you, Dad? Don't you knock?" Push, right? Where are my liberties? Where are my boundaries, right? And my dad said, "Knock on what?" I said, "The door. You didn't knock on my door before you just opened it." And my dad said, "Oh, you're under the delusion that's your door." That's my door because I bought that door. And this is my room because I bought that room. I just let you use this room. But since that door is causing you all kinds of stress, I'm going to remove your stress. And my dad took the door off the hinges, right? Now, he didn't have to hit me. He didn't have to be violent. He just calmly and with his voice down exerted a boundary that says, if there's any question in your mind, who's in charge here, that person would be me. There was a situation I saw one time where this, I don't know, 13-year-old girl or something, probably about that age, she really disrespected her mother, like bad, and then the grandfather, the mother was a single mom, and the grandfather stepped in and said, "You're not going to talk to your mom like that." She said, "What are you going to do about it? Like, what you got to say?" And so they gave her this like ultimatum, like, you've got 3 seconds to sort this out. And she said, "Or what? What y'all going to do? You going to hit me? I'll take it. There's nothing you can do I won't take." So now that is the ultimate in. There's nothing you can do that I'm not willing to take from you to be free, to be able to free to do whatever I want to do. And so I just have, sorry?
Just to be clear, Luke's wondering if it was one of mine.
Sounds like a
It was not.
child.
Yes. No, it was not. And so, the grandfather was sort of taken aback, and so the mother said to me, "This is what my kid just did. What do you reckon?" And I said, "Do you trust me?" And she said, "Yeah." I said, "Do you have to go to work tomorrow?" She said, "Yeah." I said, "Will anybody be at home?" She said, "No." I said, "Give me the key to your house. And just trust me, I'll sort it." And so they did. And so I went over to the house, and with the help of the grandfather, I took everything out of the rebellious girl's room, except for her bed, a sheet and blanket, a pillow, and 2 outfits. And of course, like her toothbrush and stuff, that was also there. So when she came home from school, she's like, "Where's all my stuff?" And I said, "Oh, you're under delusion. You have stuff. See, that's their stuff because they bought it. They just let you use it. And you've just lost the privilege to have your stuff because you're being disrespectful to your mom and grandfather. And you will earn your stuff back with respectful behavior because I love you and I'm not going to let you develop into something like that because that will not do well for your life. And when you learn to express yourself properly, even when you're hurt, it will do well for you. And so until that time, you'll have 2 outfits to wear that you can interchange. And you have a nice bed and a pillow and toiletries and obviously everything else, but your stuff, no, your stuff's a privilege." And what happened is very quickly, she had a right to be hurt about some things, but she was learning how to express that hurt more healthfully. And I still know them now, and she's an awesome person. That was probably 14 years ago. So sometimes when people push, that's normal, but we have to calmly set boundaries. And sometimes I would say the quicker and the fastest and the most consistent you can do that, the better. Without being violent. There's no need to be violent.
Shane, we're probably going to think about sort of winding down. Any closing thoughts or comments around parenting as we sort of finish up?
I would say, other than moving your kids from ego to ethno to world, not allowing habits to be developed that makes you not like them, making sure that we train, which will require less punishment, and not exacerbating our children to wrath. I would also point out that your children think that you're normal. Now, what that means is that when they become adults, they will look for similar situations that you provide. So, your daughter, sir, will marry a man like you. And it's not because of something weird or Oedipus. It's because she thinks you're normal. And ma'am, your sons will marry a woman like you. And it's not because something weird or sexual. It's not because of Oedipus. It's because he thinks you're normal. He thinks that's what a normal woman is. And so I think it's important with our parenting that we ask the question, if my daughter married a man like me, would I be happy for her? And if not, why not? And it's time to change. What sort of example am I setting? She's getting her cues on how to handle conflict from how I handle conflict. And so where do I need to take responsibility for that? And ma'am, if your son married a woman like you, would you be happy for him? And if not, why not? Because he's taking his cues on how to let people treat him from you and how you treat the man sitting next to you right now. So I think it's important that what we think is normal is ingrained in our brain by the age of 8 from our family of origin. So what kind of environment are we creating in terms of how big the world can be for our children? And I think that's important to wrestle with.
Beautiful. Well, thanks again so much, Shane. Again, lots to chew on and work through, but really do appreciate you and spending time to be able to share with us and just impart value and wisdom into our church, into our lives, and want to honour you and thank you again once again.
Thanks, guys. This was an honor as always. Anything I can do with GC Church, you're my family. And I never feel like a guest with you. I feel like family. So that's great.
Beautiful.
Thanks, Shane.
Well, thanks, Shane, and bless you if you've jumped on today. Really pray that there's been something that's encouraged you and blessed you and really set you forward in Jesus' name. So be blessed and look forward to seeing you soon.
Well, how good was that with our great friend Pastor Shane Willard learning a little bit more about families and parenting. If you've missed out on any of the sessions from Pastor Shane over the last 3 weeks, you can jump online and check out anything you've missed. There's been some incredibly helpful series, and I hope that you're able to really just take it and build our lives upon it. Like, how many of us know that life is really made up of our relationships? Everything else is just window dressing. So an incredibly helpful and practical series. I encourage you, if you haven't seen it all, go back and have a look.
And don't forget, journey with us in the Word this week. Ephesians chapter 3. If you haven't started Ephesians yet, you don't have much work to go back. Chapter 1 and chapter 2. But Ephesians 3, join with us in the journey. Have an awesome week.
Bye!
Bye!